Welcome back to the deep dive. There's a phrase I think about a lot when we look at these legal stacks. Promises are cheap. We make them all the time. I'll fix your sink on Tuesday. I'll star in your movie. But the real question, the one that keeps lawyers up at night, isn't about making the promise. It's about the price tag when you break it.
Exactly. It's the so what factor. If I break my promise to you, what does it actually cost me? And more importantly, what does the law do to make you whole?
And that's exactly what we are digging into today. We're opening up a module on remedies and agreed damages. Basically, when things go south, how does the law measure the harm? And how much can you rewrite those rules yourself in the contract?
It's a fascinating area because it sits right at the intersection of strict math and human psychology. We're going to navigate a specific path today.
Okay, lay it out for us.
First, we'll look at the default measurement, expectation damages, and this tricky concept called lost volume.
Got it.
Then we'll get into the fine print-limited remedies like those repair or replace clauses and what happens when they fail.
Ah, the bane of every consumer's existence.
Then we'll distinguish valid, liquidated damages from unenforceable penalties. And finally, we'll tackle those dreaded arbitration clauses and the defense of unconscionability.
Perfect. I want to start with something that I think everyone has felt. You hire someone, they completely screw you over, it feels personal, you want to make them pay.
Yeah.
So can you? Can you get punitive damages?
The short answer, and this surprises a lot of people, is generally no.
No, even if they did it on purpose.
Even then, in the eyes of the law, a contract breach isn't a moral failing, it's an economic one. The goal is compensation, not punishment. We just want to put you in the position you would have been in.
That sounds incredibly cold.
It is cold, but
Okay.
there's a massive exception. You can get punitive damages if, and this is the key, the conduct isn't just a breach, but also an independent intentional tort.
Okay, independent intentional tort. What does that look like in the real world?
Think fraud, malice, gross negligence. We have a perfect case in the stack that illustrates this. Hipschman-Pontiac, Inc. v. Batchelor.
Let's analyze Hipschman-Pontiac. First, what are the legally dispositive facts?
So a man named Batchelor buys a car, and it's a total lemon. The paint is bubbled, bumper's twisted, transmission's off. He takes it back to the dealer, Hipschman-Pontiac, for repairs under the warranty.
As you would.
Right, and they say they'll fix it.
Sure.
But he keeps having to bring it back. The turning point is when the service manager looks Batchelor in the eye and says, it's all ready to go.
But it wasn't.
Not even close. The evidence showed they hadn't even touched the defects. They were just holding the car and giving it back to him.
And what was the core legal issue?
The issue was whether the dealer's repeated failure to repair the car, combined with their misrepresentations, could support an award of punitive damages.
What rule of law did the court apply? Please state the full black-letter rule and break it down into its testable elements.
The court applied the rule that punitive damages are available for a breach of contract only when the conduct independently establishes the elements of a common law tort. The elements here were that the conduct contained elements of malice, fraud, gross negligence, or oppressive conduct.
Thank you. Now for the court's elemental analysis. Let's walk through this. How did the court apply the tortious conduct element, specifically the idea of fraud?
Well, the court distinguished between just failing to fix the car and actively deceiving the customer. The sub-issue was whether telling him the car was fixed when they knew it wasn't constituted fraud.
And the sub-rule for fraud is an intentional misrepresentation of a material fact.
Exactly. The court applied the facts here and found that the service manager's statement, it's all ready to go, wasn't just an empty promise. It was a knowing lie about work that hadn't been done. That specific act was a fraudulent misrepresentation.
So it wasn't just incompetence, it was deceit.
Precisely. That's what elevated it from a simple contract breach to tortious conduct.
And after analyzing all the elements, what was the court's final conclusion?
The court's conclusion was that punitive damages were appropriate. The dealer's actions crossed the line from a mere failure to perform into the realm of oppressive, fraudulent conduct, which is a separate tort.
So the takeaway is, if you're going to breach a contract, don't lie about it.
Don't add fraud to your failure.
Okay, let's shift to mitigation. If someone breaches a contract with me, I can't just sit around and let the losses pile up, right?
That's right. You have a duty to mitigate your damages. If a supplier bails, you have to try to find a substitute. The law deducts whatever you did earn or could have earned from your damages.
But there's this brain-bending exception called lost volume. Let's use the Shirley MacLaine example to break it down.
Right, from the Parker v. 20th Century Fox case.
Let's analyze this concept. First, what are the legally dispositive facts for our scenario?
Okay, so an actress has a contract to star in a movie, let's call it Bloomer Girl, being filmed in LA. The studio breaches. To mitigate, she books two other jobs, a one-night guest spot on The Late Show and a lead role in a new Broadway play.
And what was the core legal issue?
The issue is which of her new earnings, if any, should be deducted from the damages the studio owes her for the breached movie contract.
What rule of law did the court apply? Please state the full black letter rule and break it down.
The rule is that mitigation earnings are deducted only if the new work is a substitute for the old. The test has two key elements. First, the new work could not have been performed simultaneously with the breached contract, and second, the new employment is substantially similar.
Okay, now for the court's elemental analysis. Let's apply the first element, simultaneity, to the talk show versus the Broadway play.
Let's start with the talk show. The sub-issue is whether she could have filmed Bloomer Girl and also appeared on The Late Show.
And the sub-rule is basically common sense, can you be in two places at once?
Right. And applying the facts, you can absolutely film a movie during the day and do a TV guest spot at night. Actors do it all the time for press. So the conclusion for this element is that the talk show is additional work, not a substitute. It's lost volume.
Meaning you don't deduct that income.
Correct. Now, let's apply that same simultaneity element to the Broadway play.
Okay.
The sub-issue is the same. Could she do both? But applying the facts, she cannot be starring in a movie that films in Los Angeles and simultaneously be starring in a play that performs every night in New York.
Physically impossible.
So the conclusion for this element is that the Broadway play is a substitute. She only took it because the movie was canceled.
And after analyzing all the elements, what was the court's final conclusion?
The conclusion is that the talk show earnings are not deducted from her damages, but the Broadway earnings are deducted. Employees are rarely lost volume sellers because there are only 24 hours in a day. Businesses, on the other hand, are a different story.
I want to use a visceral hypothetical to lock this in. The plumber.
The plumber example is perfect.
So present the scenario.
You hire a plumber to install a toilet for $500.
Okay.
You cancel right before he shows up. Breach. His phone immediately rings, and it's your neighbor, who also needs a toilet installed for $500. The plumber does the neighbor's job.
So he made his money. He has no damages.
Wrong. This is a classic lost volume seller. The plumber has, for all practical purposes, unlimited capacity to install toilets. He could have hired an apprentice, worked an extra hour, or scheduled a neighbor for the next day.
He could have done both jobs.
He could have and would have done both jobs. The breach didn't give him a replacement job. It cost him one of his two potential jobs for the day. He lost the profit on your toilet forever, so you still owe him that profit.
That's a powerful distinction. Okay, let's move on to limited remedies. Can a seller just say in the contract, if this breaks, I'll only repair it, I don't owe you a refund?
Yes, under the UCC, parties can limit remedies to repair or replacement. But there's a huge exception. The limitation is unenforceable if it fails of its essential purpose.
And the case for this is Goddard v. General Motors Corp. Let's analyze it. First, what are the legally dispositive facts?
A buyer, Goddard, bought a new car with a standard warranty, limiting the remedy to repair or replace defective parts. But the car was a nightmare. In just 10 months, the starter, fuel pump, water pump, and transmission, twice, all failed.
The car was constantly in the shop.
Constantly.
And what was the core legal issue?
The issue was whether the repair or replace remedy had failed of its essential purpose, given that the car could never be reliably fixed.
What rule of law did the court apply here?
The court applied the rule that a limited remedy fails its essential purpose when 1. The seller is unable to cure the defect, 2. Within a reasonable time or number of attempts, and 3. This failure deprives the buyer of the substantial value of the bargain.
Let's do the elemental analysis. How did the court apply the first element, the seller being unable to cure the defect?
Well, the sub-issue is whether GM's repeated attempts to repair were the same as actually repairing. The court looked at the facts. GM tried again and again, but the car remained fundamentally defective and unreliable. The remedy, the act of repairing, didn't actually provide the promised result, which was a working car. So the remedy itself failed. Exactly. The court concluded that element was met because the buyer was never given the thing he bargained for.
And after analyzing all the elements, what was the court's final conclusion?
The court concluded that the limited remedy had failed of its essential purpose. Therefore, the repair or replace clause was struck from the contract, and the buyer was allowed to pursue all other remedies available under the UCC, including a refund.
Okay, that's the lemon test. Now let's talk about liquidated damages. Can parties agree on a specific dollar amount for a breach in advance?
Yes, but it cannot be a penalty. The law allows for a reasonable good faith estimate of what actual damages might be, especially when they're hard to calculate. But it forbids using a clause to punish or threaten the other party.
And we have the classic case for this, Kemble v. Farron. Let's analyze it. What are the facts?
It was an entertainer's contract. The clause said that if either party breached any part of the agreement, they would owe the other £1,000, a huge sum at the time.
And what was the core legal issue?
The issue was whether that £1,000 clause was a valid liquidated damage or an unenforceable penalty.
What rule did the court apply, specifically concerning the proportionality of the damage amount?
The court used the rule that a single stipulated sum is a penalty if it applies to multiple different kinds of breaches, some trivial, some total, without any reasonable relation to the likely harm of each specific breach. It's the one-size-fits-all problem.
So for the elemental analysis, how did the court analyze the nature of the breach element?
The court looked at the contract and said, look, the actor could breach by quitting the show entirely, which would cause massive harm. But he could also breach by, say, missing a single rehearsal, which might cause almost no harm.
And the contract fined him the same £1,000 either way.
Precisely. The court applied the facts and found the sum was not proportional. It was in terrorum, meant to terrorize the actor into performing.
And the court's final conclusion?
The conclusion was that the clause was a penalty and therefore void. The plaintiff was limited to proving his actual damages in court.
All right, last topic, and it's a big one, arbitration. Can a contract force you into arbitration and stop you from going to court?
Generally, yes. The Federal Arbitration Act strongly favors enforcing arbitration agreements. But again, there's an exception: unconscionability.
And the case here is Ingle v. Circuit City Stores, Inc. Let's analyze it. What are the facts?
An employee, as a condition of getting a job at Circuit City, had to sign a mandatory arbitration agreement. It was a take-it-or-leave-it deal.
And the legal issue.
The issue was whether that arbitration clause was unconscionable and therefore unenforceable.
What rule of law did the court use?
It used the sliding scale rule of unconscionability. This requires finding both, 1, procedural unconscionability, which is about unequal bargaining power or surprise, and 2, substantive unconscionability, which is about the terms being overly harsh or one-sided.
Okay, let's do the elemental analysis on the substantive part. How are the terms one-sided?
Oh, they were shockingly one-sided. The court identified several things. The agreement shortened the time for employees to file claims. It banned class actions. It imposed high filing fees on the employee. And this was the kicker: Circuit City retained the right to unilaterally modify the rules at any time.
Wow, so the employee was locked in, but the company could change the game whenever it wanted.
Exactly. The court concluded this wasn't a fair system of dispute resolution. It was a rigged system designed to prevent employees from ever winning.
So what was the final conclusion?
The court concluded the clause was substantively and procedurally unconscionable, and therefore it was completely unenforceable.
A good reminder that just because it's in the fine print doesn't mean it's gospel.
Now,
Okay, we've covered a ton of ground. If I'm a listener facing a potential breach, give me the exam framework. How do I put this all together?
it's a 5-step diagnostic checklist.
Let's hear it.
Step 1. Identify the remedy. Are we dealing with default expectation damages, or is there an agreed-upon remedy in the contract, like a liquidated damages clause?
Okay, step 2.
Check for mitigation and ask the crucial question: is the non-breaching party a lost volume seller? Could they have done both jobs? If they're a business, the answer is probably yes, so you don't deduct the second income.
Step 3.
Analyze limited remedies. If you see a repair or replace clause, apply the lemon test. Did the seller get a reasonable number of chances to fix it and fail? If yes, that limitation is void.
Step 4.
Analyze liquidated damages. Is the number a reasonable good faith estimate of hard-to-predict harm? Or is it a one-size-fits-all penalty designed to punish? If it's penalty, it's out.
And a last step.
Check for unconscionability, especially in arbitration clauses or consumer contracts. Look for that sliding scale of unequal power combined with oppressive one-sided terms.
That is a powerful toolkit. It turns a really messy situation into a clear analytical path.
It does. In contracts, knowing what happens when things go wrong is honestly more valuable than knowing what happens when they go right.
Couldn't have said it better. Thanks for breaking it all down for us.
My pleasure.
And to our listener, check your fine print. We'll see you on the next Deep Dive.